mentioned that if you were to summarize deen with the ahadith of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, then you can summarize it with 3 ahadith. Some muhaddithun have mentioned that you can summarize it with 4 ahadith. And that is why someone wrote in a poem that Umdatud Dini Andana Kalimatun Musnadatun Min Qawli Khairil Bariya, that the summary of our deen can be summarized with a few ahadith from the best of creation. Utrukunna Shubuhati, which is one referring to one hadith. Wazhad, referring to another hadith. Da'ma, referring to another hadith. Da'ma laysa bi ya'nika, that's another hadith. Min husn islami mari tarku ma la ya'ni. And wa'malanna bi niyya, referring to innamal a'malu bin niyad. Some hadithun refer that you can summarize our deen with 5 ahadith. One of the ahadith, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned that we hear the latter part of the hadith, but we don't hear the beginning part, and we don't tie it together. A narration of Nu'man ibn Bashir radiyallahu anhu, who was a young sahabi, hearing this hadith from Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam directly, says, I heard سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول إن الحلال بين والحرام بين وبينهما متشابهات أو مشتبهات لا يعلمهن كثير من الناس ومن اتقى الشبهات فقد استبرأ لدينه وعرضه ومن وقع في الشبهات وقع في الحرام كالراعي يرعى حول الحمى يوشك أن يرتع فيه ألا وإن لكل ملك حمى ألا وإن حمى الله محارمه ألا وإن في الجسد مضغة ألا وإن في الجسد مضغة إذا صلحت صلح الجسد كله وإذا فسدت فسد الجسد كله ألا وهي القلب. So we hear the latter part of the hadith, but we don't realize the beginning part. The Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam in this hadith, he mentioned that إِنَّ الْحَلَالَ بَيْنٌ وَالْحَرَامَ بَيْنٌ. The halal and haram are clear. And muhaddithun and sharihun have mentioned that when it comes with things that are halal in our deen and haram in our deen, there's a consensus on that. That all the scholars have agreed on that. There's a ijma' what we call, and Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam has mentioned explicitly certain things to be halal, certain things to be haram. It could be also from Quranic ayat. We will understand something to be completely halal or completely haram, and there is no doubt about that. But then Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned وَبَيْنَهُمَا مُتَشَابِهَاتٌ لَا يَعْلَمُهُنَّ كَثِيرٌ مِنَ النَّاسِ. Between the halal and haram are matters and affairs which are doubtful, and many people do not know about this. لَا يَعْلَمُهُنَّ كَثِيرٌ مِنَ النَّاسِ. Many do not know about this. So Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned many do not know about this is because it's possible that some of the mujtahidun and some of the fuqaha, they are able to derive the exact ruling, even though there might be difference of opinion amongst the fuqaha themselves. But for those that are muqallidun, those that just follow the scholars, and which are all of us, we're not able to derive the rulings ourselves. These are considered doubtful matters. And these are mutashabihat. Has one, Ibn Hajar rahimahullah has given different opinions of what mutashabihat what it refers to. But one is when there's ta'aradud dala'il, that there are proofs which are contradictory to us. One thing might be saying it's halal, another thing might be saying it's haram. One hadith or 2 ayat which might seem contradictory to us. So many people do not know the actual ruling behind that then. So Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam then mentioned the principle that وَمَنِ اتَّقَى الشُّبُهَاتِ فَقَدْ اسْتَبْرَأَ لِدِينِهِ وَعِرْضِهِ. Whoever abstains and refrains from these doubtful matters, then they've absolved their religion, their deen, and their dignity, their honor, from any accusations. So in our deen, there might be certain things and contemporary issues that come about that we may not have a definitive answer for, let alone someone who's a muqallid, let alone for just us regular people, we may not know the exact ruling behind this. So in that scenario, what is it best for us to do? Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam told us that it's best for you to refrain from that. By refraining from that doubtful matter, you are keeping your deen intact, you're keeping your religion safe from any accusations, and you're keeping your own dignity safe from accusations. So what is it showing? Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned ird and deen. Your dignity and your deen are something to keep intact. You should, if you are accused of something, it's not something that you accept the accusation. It is something that you try to absolve yourself from. As we know the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, he was not willing to leave the sijn and the jail until what? He was absolved from the accusation which was pointed against him. He would not leave until they said, no, tell the king that I did not commit this sin, and to set me free afterwards. So ird is something that a person's dignity, it's something that a person takes care of. And we don't want to be accused for the wrong things. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned how to save oneself from accusations. Don't be engaged and don't become habitual in doing these actions which are considered in the doubtful area, the gray area. And in this day and age, we may find different scholars giving fatwa for the permissibility of something, or another scholar might give the impermissibility of something. Well, on the Day of Judgment, for these issues that come about, contemporary issues that come about, are you going to be asked on the Day of Judgment, why didn't you engage in this? Why did you not eat this food? When there might be two contradictory fatwas or texts saying one is halal, one is haram. If you abstain from it, you freed yourself from any accusations. Let alone you absolved your own deen from any questions from even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the Day of Judgment. If you don't eat from it, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala going to ask you, why did you not eat from it? No. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you many other avenues and many other halal options or many other things which are considered to be halal from our deen, why do you have to engage in it when it's a doubtful matter? And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam then gave an example, كَالرَّاعِ يَرْعَى حَوْلَ الْحِمَى, that in the time in Jahiliyyah, the kings or those that were deemed as owners of different properties and lands, they had a specific area that only their animals were allowed to graze in, which is called a hima, and there was boundaries there. So if a shepherd were to graze his animal, his cattle, close to that boundary, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned, كَالرَّاعِ يَرْعَى حَوْلَ الْحِمَى يُوشِكُ أَن يَرْتَعَ فِيهِ. It is very close that eventually the animals, they themselves will start to graze in that restricted area and restricted zone. Why? Is because the animal, it just sees the grass. The grass is green there, the grass is green here. It doesn't make a distinction. So it thinks, okay, I can eat over here, the grass is finished here, let me just go over there. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam gave this tamthil and this example for us to understand, كَالرَّاعِ يَرْعَى حَوْلَ الْحِمَى يُوشِكُ أَن يَرْتَعَ فِيهِ. That just as how the animal, a shepherd is grazing their animal, all of us have our own animal within our own selves. And that is what? That is our nafs. Your nafs is very tricky. Your nafs won't tell you do this or do that. Your nafs will always, no matter, you can be 60 years old, you can be 70, you can be 80, you can be 20, you're never safe from your nafs. You're never safe from your nafs. Mawlana Shafi'itani rahimahullah mentioned a story in his Khutbah that one time a great scholar, a great sheikh, he would always make a lot of mujahida and try to suppress his nafs, doing different types of ibadat, fasting, etc., these different things. And one day his nafs was telling him, we have to go out and fight in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it was such an urge that he never felt that before. So he started thinking, contemplate, why is my nafs telling me this? It never has it told me before to go out and fight. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why all of a sudden is it telling me now? So he contemplated, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put in his heart, the reason why his nafs is telling him this is because his nafs can't handle the years of mujahida that he's been putting on his body. His nafs can't handle the amount of fasting that he's been doing, the amount of ibadah that he's been doing, the lack of food, the lack of sleep. He would rather just go out and fight and die in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so it's done. The nafs is finished. The body is done, so he doesn't have to go through that difficulty. So he said that he addressed his own self, he addressed his nafs. He said, because of that, I'm not going to go out and fight, and rather I'm still going to make mujahid against you. That's how tricky the nafs is. No one is safe from their nafs. It doesn't matter until you die. You can be 60 years old, 60, 70, 80, you're not safe from your nafs. And that's actually, Imam Shafi'i mentioned that even when you're older, that's actually a time when you have to be more cautious about your nafs. Because you tend to slip at that moment. You don't realize and perceive a sin at that moment. Because when a person is young, they realize my nafs has all these different desires. It wants to commit zina. It wants to look at the opposite gender in a haram way. It wants to eat haram food. It wants to waste his time. It wants to do all these different things. So you realize the dangerous aspect of the nafs when you're young. But when you're old, you become lax. Because you think that the nafs is in control. That you have control of your nafs. But you don't have control of your nafs even at that moment. You actually have to be more careful when you're older to control your nafs. So nafs is something that sticks with us and that remains with us our entire life. And you can never be safe from your nafs. This is why we find Ali radiallahu anhu at the time when he was fighting, when the mushrik, he had him on the ground, the mushrik spat on his face. What did he do immediately? He stopped. Because before he was fighting for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but when he spat on his face, the mushrik spat on the face of Ali radiallahu anhu, his nafs immediately came in because he became angry and he wanted to kill him because of his nafs. Not because of the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nafs was with Sahaba, nafs was with everyone. So a person has to be very careful when you are dealing with your own nafs, that this is something tricky. So, going back to the example that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave, كَالرَّاعِ يَرْعَى حَوْلَ الْحِمَى يُوشِكُ أَن يَرْتَعَ فِيهِ. Just as how the animals, they can't distinguish between which grass is permissible for them to eat, which grass is in their area and domain, and which grass is not, doesn't belong to the owner. Similarly, the nafs, it can't distinguish, well, this is actually sin, and this is a doubtful matter, and this is halal also. So, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was given an example to explain to us that ala wa inna li kulli malakin hima, that every king has this restricted area. Ala wa inna himallahi maharimuhu, and the restricted zone and restricted area of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what? His prohibited actions. Those prohibitions which He's mentioned to us. And a person now is close to those prohibitions, then what happens is there will be a time that the person will eventually fall into those prohibitions. This is why in our aspect there's a usul and there's a principle called saddu dhara'i', that you want to sever and close off any possible paths that can lead to sin. It's not the sin itself, but those things which lead to sin, we're supposed to abstain from that also. We find that in a hadith, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the Quran, many times Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not told us to not do the sin, but rather don't even come close to the sin. وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا زِنَا وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا مَالِ الْيَتِيمِ. Don't come close to zina. Don't come close to the wealth of the orphan. Why? Is because those things, if you come close, what does it mean by coming close to zina? Engaging with the opposite gender, intermingling with them, or talking with them without an actual darura. Then eventually what will happen, without an actual need, what will happen is that you will start to engage in the different forms of zina. You might start touching them, you might start hugging them, and eventually lead to the ultimate zina of fornication. A person coming close to the wealth of the yatim, the wealth of an orphan. The orphan, the orphan is young. They're not able to control their entire wealth. They don't go out and say, this is all my needs. I need to buy a car or anything like that. They're young. So what happens is when you see the wealth and you see the amount of wealth that they have, you're tempted to use it. And when you use it more, well, why use your own wealth? You can use their wealth instead. So Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلَا تَقْرِبُوا مَالِ الْيَتِيمِ. Don't even come close to their wealth. And you find many aspects in our deen that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned that don't even come close to these actions, because they'll eventually lead to those prohibited actions. And this is the concept of this hadith. And you'll find every single hadith Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself mentioned, he practically implemented the hadith also. When it comes to this hadith, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his life, we know that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam people would give sadaqah to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, zakah, and he would distribute that. And what was the zakah that was given? Dates, rice, not rice, dates, sha'ir, barley, and these different, sometimes money, dinars, dirhams were given to him. So dates were excessively given to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and he would distribute amongst the fuqara. One time, it so happened that he found a date in his house. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned, I don't know whether this date is from the dates of the sadaqah, meaning the zakat that was given to me to distribute, or whether it's from my own dates, from my own possession. So he didn't eat from it. Even if you were to look at it, however, this is the food which is in someone's house, you would generally think that it's completely halal for you to eat because it's in your house. You didn't steal it. You must have bought it, your family must have bought it, your children must have bought it. It was in your house, it's halal. But because Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said it's possible that maybe a date fell out when I was carrying it outside to the fuqara, to the poor, and to distribute it, that this date actually landed here, that fell here in my house. I don't know whether it's permissible for me to eat because Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam wasn't permissible for him to take sadaqat, meaning zakah, nor the Ahlul Bayt. So he left it. What was this? This is leaving out that which is doubtful because there isn't a clear-cut proof that it could be his, it could belong to the fuqara. So he left it out. One time a sahabi came to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and said that, Ya Rasulullah, a woman came to me and my wife and said that I nursed both of you. When both of you were young, meaning to me and my wife, she said, I nursed both of you. Now that would make them technically foster brothers and sisters. So it wouldn't be halal for them to marry. So then he came to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and he told Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that this is what happened. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam turned away. And then the Sahabi came the other way and he told the same thing to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and he turned away. So the Sahabi came in the other direction and told him, and he said, فَأَنَّا لِذَلِكَ. He said, what can I do about that? Maybe, perhaps she's telling the truth. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam didn't tell him directly to separate, but he was saying what is basically taqwa. That it's possible she's telling the truth. So again, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was making amal, practically demonstrating the practicality behind this hadith. When something is doubtful, you abstain from it. And then Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam concluded the hadith that أَلَا وَإِنَّ فِي الْجَسَدِ مُضْغَةً إِذَا صَلُحَتْ صَلُحَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ وَإِذَا فَسَدَتْ فَسَدَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ أَلَا وَهِيَ الْقَلْبُ. That the last part of the hadith, the heart, that there's a small flesh, a small portion of flesh in the body, that if this is rectified, the entire body will be rectified. If it is corrupt and if it's spoiled, the entire body will be corrupt and spoiled. And what is that? That's the heart. So what is Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam saying? Is the doubtful matters, they have an effect upon your heart. If you're constantly engaging in doubtful matters, what will happen is your heart will eventually become corrupt also. And your heart is like the king inside the body, it controls the limbs. The intentions come in the heart first, and then the heart gives those intentions out to the limbs, do this, do that. But if you're always engaging in halal, you're abstaining from the haram, and not only from that, but from the doubtful matters, then the heart is going to be rectified. And if your heart is rectified, you will be doing good actions and good a'mal. So shubuhat fall not only in, for example, the food that we eat, but when we find something, some people are saying something is haram, some people are saying it's halal, especially in contemporary issues that are coming about. What is best to do? Refrain from it. You don't need to attack any mufti, you don't need to attack any scholar, just refrain from it. You'll be safe in your deen, you'll be safe in your dignity also. Because understand one thing, is in this day and age, many accusations are coming about, be it regarding about high personality figures or just about regular people, ourselves also. You find it within the world of the kuffar, you find it within the world of the Muslims. One thing is for sure is that if you are always engaged in doubtful things, and if they accuse you of actually doing something impermissible, everyone will believe them. Why? Is because you're already engaged in the doubtful matters. So it's not far-fetched that you're engaged in the impermissible things. You want an example of this? If a person is always surrounded, or if a person has a habit of intermingling with the opposite gender, and they may be saying that we're doing it out of necessity. Okay, they may be saying we're doing it out of necessity. Then if some female raises their finger against that person and says that this person harassed me, then it's more likely for everyone to believe that. Why? Is because you're engaged in, you're in the gray zone there right now. Even though it's not a gray zone, the person is not supposed to be engaging, intermingling without necessity. But you're in the quote unquote gray zone. So people will accuse you immediately. But when a person is not even known for that, they're very strict with their own deen, and someone were to accuse them randomly, immediately people will come to the defense of the person and say, this person is not like that. They themselves are so protective of their deen. They abstain from even the doubtful matters. How can they get involved in something haram? So this is what we build barriers around our deen. And this is, for example, we find our salah also. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has given our farad, there's farad salah and there's the sunnah. If shaitan is trying to attack the sunnah, he's trying to make you forget about the sunnah, trying to let you forsake the sunnah. Now if you don't even pray your sunnah at all, and you're just praying your farad, what happens? There's no barrier around the farad. Shaitan has a direct target. He's going to eventually attack your farad salah. He's going to say, give it up somehow. Sleep through it. You're tired. Make qada of it. In our deen, you're supposed to build barriers. And especially with doubtful matters, those are the barriers. Stay away from that. You'll be safe in with your own dignity and your deen. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq and the ability to refrain from doubtful matters. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Inshallah, we can all pray and get up and pray our sunnahs. And please make room for those that will be coming, inshallah. A few announcements, inshallah. Please stand up and move forward and do not leave gaps in between and make space for others. Please pass the donation boxes from left to right and donate generously. Sadaqah wards off calamities and draws the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned, charity giving during the day of Jumu'ah is greater in reward than any other day. The narrated in Musannaf of Abdul. Our Tafheem weekend program enrollment for fall 2022 is now open at masjidds.org/Tafheem /Tafheem. The classes have started. You can enroll now. Open to brothers and sisters, offered on-site and online. The Tafheem program focuses on providing educational opportunities for eager learners of all ages on a part-time basis. We are inviting all high school and college students to join us for the youth night on Friday, September 16th. Inshallah, Qari Nu'man from IFS and Sheikh Ridwan from CPSA will be visiting. We're excited to announce our annual Quran night and benefit dinner, which will be held on September 24th, inshallah. We'll be welcoming Sheikh Hamza Wardak and Qari Abdul Basit Khazi, inshallah. Bukhari Dars with Mufti Minhaj will be restarting on September 12th, Monday after Maghrib, inshallah. We are currently hiring female Hifz teachers and hiring male math and science teachers for middle and high school students. Our weekly programs, Tuesday's Tafsir program, this is continuing after Maghrib. We're currently covering Surah Taha, and Saturday's Team Fajr will continue tomorrow. Fajr Iqamah will be at 5:45 a.m. inshallah, and then there will be community breakfast afterwards.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر، الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله بالحق بشيرا ونذيرا بين يدي الساعة. فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن المجيد يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله ولتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ألا وإن في الجسد مضغة إذا صلحت صلح الجسد كله وإذا فسدت فسد الجسد كله ألا وهي القلب. بارك الله لي ولكم في القرآن العظيم ونفعنا وإياكم بآياته والذكر الحكيم. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله بالحق بشيرا ونذيرا بين يدي الساعة. فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن المجيد إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على عبدك ورسولك وصل على المؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات وبارك على محمد وأزواجه وذريته. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. اللهم إنا نسألك الهدى والتقى والعفاف والغنى. عباد الله رحمكم الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. اذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله تعالى أعلى وأولى وأعز وجل وأتم وأهم وأكبر. أقيموا الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
So صفوفكم واعتدلوا. Please ensure that the rows are straight, no gaps in between, shoulder to shoulder, heels on the line. Allahu Akbar. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. ألهاكم التكاثر حتى زرتم المقابر كلا سوف تعلمون ثم كلا سوف تعلمون كلا لو تعلمون علم اليقين لترون الجحيم ثم لترونها عين اليقين ثم لتسألن يومئذ عن النعيم. الله أكبر.